Hello, welcome everyone. Today we are going to look at a very important concept, the general property of quadratic equation. Now, first of all, what is a quadratic equation? A quadratic equation is a polynomial whose roots are 2. Now, take for instance, this is an example of a quadratic equation. S square minus 3x minus 6 is equal to 0. This is a quadratic equation. We are going to look at a lot about the whole thing because this is a very broad concept. Now, the first thing we are going to look at is what? The graph of a quadratic equation. Now, the graph of a quadratic equation looks like this. This is what? Our x-axis, and this is what? Our y-axis. First thing to note, if s is carrying plus standing alone, the graph is going to have a curve like this. Now, the next thing to note is this. If, let's say, you are having something like 6x minus s squared plus 5 is equal to 0. Now, look at this. Here, the s square is carrying what? Minus. So the graph is going to look like this. So if s is positive, the graph is going to curve downward. If it is negative, it's going to curve upward. That's the first property to note about quadratic equation. Very important. Now, the next thing to note is this. Where this graph cut, the constant here is 6. So if you plot the graph, where the graph cut the y-axis is going to be what? That minus 6. Do you understand? The same thing with this place. Where it cut here is going to be plus 6. You understand? That's the second property. So the constant is telling you what? Where the graph cuts the y-axis. Now the next thing is this. When you solve this particular quadratic equation, you are going to get what? An answer. Two answers. Let's say our first answer is what? Alpha, and our second answer is what? Beta, the root when you solve them. Where this graph cuts the y-axis is going to be your alpha, and when this graph cuts the x-axis is going to be your beta. The same thing with this place, alpha and then beta. So where the graph cut y-axis is the root, we call it roots, is the root of the quadratic equation. Now, the next thing to note about quadratic equation is this. This middle term, that the product, let's do this now. Let's say our first answer, like we said, is equal to what? Alpha, and then the second answer s is equals to what? Beta. We want to prove something now. Now we can say that s minus what? Alpha is equal to 0, or s minus what? Beta is equal to 0. This is equal to 0 and this is equal to 0. It means the product of alpha s minus alpha and s minus beta will still give us 0. So we can say that our s minus alpha times what? S minus what? Beta is equal to what? Still 0. Let's open the bracket. Our s square minus beta s, we are done with this. This should be x. Then alpha times s, then our alpha x, that's alpha times s, then minus times minus will give us what? Plus. Alpha beta is equal to 0. So that our x square minus into the bracket of what? Beta plus alpha. We bring this s here, there's s here, so we factorize it. Then plus alpha times what? Beta is equal to what? 0. Now, look at this. If you observe this carefully, we can as well say that our s square then plus s times bracket minus alpha plus beta plus alpha times beta is equal to 0. So this is one of the most important property. Compare these two equations, and the first one is telling you that we already established that alpha and beta are our root. It means our minus alpha plus beta is equal to what? 3, comma, and then alpha times beta is equal to what? Minus 6. So this is the next property of a quadratic equation. The property says that the middle term, that's the coefficient of s, is equal to the negative sum of the root, our two root. That's the answer. That is where the graph cut the s-axis. If you multiply them together, if you add them together and take its negative, you are going to get this middle term. And then when you multiply them together, you get this last term. Then another thing, the general equation for quadratic equation is as square plus bs plus c equal to 0. Now look at this. If we divide everything by a, like a, our a will cancel a, our s square plus b over what? A s plus c over what? A is equal to what? 0. So we can as well say that our alpha plus beta is equal to what? B over what? A, and then our alpha times beta is equal to c over what? A. Very important. If you forget everything, don't forget this. Now, what this equation is telling us that is the sum of these two, of the two roots of a quadratic equation, is equal to the middle term, the one that you multiply by s, and the product is equal to the extreme term. Make sure I put this minus, very important. It's a very common mistake one can easily make. You understand? Now, let's use this particular theorem to answer this very question, and then we call it a day. Now the question said, if alpha and beta are the roots of the equation s square minus what? 3s minus 6 equal to 0, find the value of what? Alpha square plus beta square. Now, how do we get this? We have already established that alpha plus beta is equals to what? Negative of the middle term. Taking negative of the middle term, that's minus 3, and is equals to what? 3. And then alpha times beta is equals to what? The last term, that is what? Minus 6. We are looking for what? Alpha square plus beta square, and we say alpha and beta, they are the root of this quadratic equation. Now, we don't need to go and solve this thing before we get alpha and beta. We can use this theory and get it direct, solve this question direct. That's one important thing about that theory we just discussed. Now, let's do this. Let's find a way to express alpha square plus beta square, so that everything that it will contain will either be in terms of alpha plus beta or alpha times beta. Now look at this. If we take alpha plus beta and we square it, like alpha plus beta square, everything is going to give us, if we square this, we're going to get alpha square plus 2 times alpha times beta is going to give us 2 alpha beta plus alpha beta, and everything is equal. Let's forget this, we don't need this for now. Now, so if this turn to this other side, we have alpha plus beta square minus 2 alpha beta is equals to what? Alpha square plus what? Beta square. Now this is what we are looking for, and it's equals to everything here. You know, we have alpha plus beta and then alpha times beta, so we can now substitute and get our value for what? Alpha square plus beta square. Now let's do this. We say alpha, okay, let's flip the equation first. Alpha square plus beta square is equal to bracket alpha plus beta square minus 2 alpha beta. Now this our alpha square plus beta square will be equals to, putting this now, we get 3. Our alpha plus beta, we have already calculated it to be 3, so we square it. This is equals to 2 into the bracket of our alpha times beta is what? 6. This is minus here, and everything will be equals to this plus this 9. Minus times minus will give us plus. 2 times 6 is what? 12. So it's equal to what? 21. So don't forget this. With this property we have discussed so far, to go along with helping you, we say this represents where it cuts, the graph cuts what? The y-axis. Then where the graph cuts the s-axis is our root, and we say the sum of the root, the negative sum of the root give us this middle term, and the product of the root give us the last term. You understand? You are most welcome. Please, subscription is very important. It will encourage me to do more content like this. You are most welcome.